Hello and welcome again to this edition of BounceBack as we continue to try and stay positive in these difficult times, reflect, review our coaching methods and our business, and more importantly, try and stay positive as we plan to go forwards and be ready to bounce back as soon as we're able to get back on the court where we all really are longing to be. Today we're going to have a look at the different styles of coaching and where coaching's come from. Coaching's become quite a buzzword within industry and within the commercial world, but coaching in terms of sport goes way back, probably even to the ancient Olympics, and as such, people involved in coaching in sport have got hundreds of years of experience working in coaching and motivating and helping people, whereas people in business is a relatively new thing. So we are way in front of those industries in terms of what we can bring to the table, and looking at the different skills that we have and how we can actually introduce them into our coaching business. What we're looking at is the different styles of coaching, and it's something that will evolve with you over time. In the first place, we were talking yesterday a little bit about coaching in the first place when you're developing a philosophy, and until you've really been coaching for a while, you don't really understand yourself, your best way to coach. It is a lot of trial and error, and building your relationships, building your coaching practice and methods is what develops that philosophy, and at the same time does develop your style of coaching. It develops with your personality, your character, and obviously the people that you're working with. And once you've got that more experience, you're obviously becoming much more comfortable with your coaching methods and with the way that you work with players. There are a different number of styles of coaching. We're just going to have a look at 4 today, but also in terms of the people that you're working with, obviously the different age groups you're working with. You know, we're starting some of the kids now at 3 years old and going all the way through to adults. So working with people at different ages, different ability levels, those who are maybe coming for the social reasons, those who are coming for competitive reasons, your serious tournament players, the hit and giggle groups, everything from one end to the other. And we have to vary the way that we work and coach with each one to make sure we're actually meeting their requirements and their demands in terms of what they want out of those lessons. So there are 4 styles we're going to look at today. Each one of them have their own merits, and each one of them can be used and utilized according to what you're actually trying to teach and who you're trying to teach it to. So we're going to have a look at the autocratic, the democratic, the laissez-faire, and then finally, perhaps a little bit more unusual, the transformational coaching style. Developing a style, it is up to you. It's up to you how you want to work with your players, whether you want to be more of an authoritarian, whether you want to be a little bit more democratic, and how you, again, this could be your personality, your character, and to a certain extent it's also limited by knowledge. The wider knowledge you have of coaching, technical, tactical, physical and mental, obviously the more flexibility you're going to have in your coaching approach. If you're going to go down the question and answer route, you need to have a very good base of knowledge in the first place, because you don't really want to start asking too many questions if you don't actually know the answers. So we will develop and evolve as coaches over time as we build these blocks and widen the base of knowledge as we go forwards. So the first one then, the autocratic style. This is pretty much the coach is king. So you control everything, you tell people exactly what to do, how to do it, and you make sure it is pretty dictatorial, not open for discussion. This has been criticised a lot in the past, but it still has its place. It's, you know, if you're working with large groups, you have to maintain control. You can't do question and answer coaching if you've got 36 kids in a school playground. So it still has its merits and it still has its place. And again, if you don't have that wide range of experience, you need to keep things within your own control, within your own limits. And although you in time would want to develop that, in the first instance, you have to be able to work to the skill set you've got. So there's nothing wrong with this. It does give you that consistency, make sure that you're repeating the same things. And in the first place, repetition is something that players will need and actually enjoy. And I don't think we should shy away from that either. It is, though, difficult to keep working with that way for a long period of time. It does become dictatorial. In the end, the players don't like getting told too much what to do. They do want to be involved in that decision making and working with you, as well as you controlling them. And there's also a certain level of fear that can come into the group if they feel they can't ask questions. So there are times when maybe it's not the best, but there are definitely times when there is absolutely nothing wrong with using that style of coaching. The democratic is pretty much the question and answer, the complete opposite really to the autocratic. We're basically involving the power with the players to get them to make decisions, to set their own targets, their own goals. That brings a better commitment from the player. They're taking ownership of their training, they're taking ownership of their own personal development, as well as not just relying on you. And because of that ownership, you'll get more commitments, more self-motivation, and more likely to get success if they're taking that responsibility properly. It does help when you're trying to solve problems in a number of situations at the same time. You may have got 3 or 4 players or even more on the court, and if each one's got their own specific targets, then they're motivated to work in those ways, and it helps you control that environment much better. And you are empowering, you're giving that knowledge, you're giving that decision making to the player, and they will grow themselves as that, and then that teamwork starts to develop a lot better between you and the players, because you're building that response, you're building that respect and that rapport with your players. It doesn't always work though. Again, the opposite to the autocratic. The players have to have the knowledge and experience in the first place to be able to decide what they want their goals and targets to be. They have to understand what's realistic and what's not realistic. And obviously, making decisions and getting them wrong is very difficult for a young player to accept. So sometimes giving them too much autocracy in the beginning could be dangerous if they can't accept those responsibilities of making mistakes, as well as they maybe need to. The laissez-faire coaching, it's really where the player just controls. We just hand over the reins to the player and we let them choose what they want to do, how they want to do it, and the coach is basically taking the advice from players. This will only really work with much more experienced players when they know very clearly what to do, what they want, what they're needing, what direction they're going in, and the coach is more of a facilitator and putting those things in place for the player. If you're looking at this though, it's not an excuse to be lazy. It's very easy just to say, yeah, what do you want to do, and let's go and do that. You don't plan, you don't think it through. Those lessons from experience are the hardest lessons to deliver, and they last forever because there's no real plan, there's no targets, there's no input from the coach, and it makes it very difficult to coach because you don't know what the objective of the lesson is. So very, very tough to actually use this kind of coaching. If your players are good players, then you need the input from the players. You need them from the team. If you're working with a team of players, you need to get them involved in this decision making, take that responsibility. Again, working with older and better players, if they're going to go and play the tour, they have to be able to do that independently of you. So they do need to start putting in these things to control their own destinies and not just being led by you. It doesn't work though at the lower level. It only really works at the lower level on the very first lesson. So we have a saying we've used for years: you have to give somebody what they want before you give them what they need. So if somebody comes to you for the first lesson and they want a new serve, and you do the analysis in the first place and you go, actually your serve's not bad, but you really need a backhand. If you don't give that player the serve they wanted, they're unlikely to come back for another lesson or another lesson, where over time you can build that rapport between you. The player then starts to trust you, so you can then lead the player where you need them to go and they will follow. But in the first place, that player comes with a specific target and you have to fulfill that requirement, otherwise they don't come back. So in that situation, it is still appropriate, but it's not an excuse to be lazy. It is probably one of the more difficult ways of coaching if it's done properly. Transformational coaching is basically as the coach, you're always looking to lead by example. The way you are, the way you perform, the way you act, the way you behave, the whole thing is how that's going to be put across to the players. If you're going down this route, you have to be very strong, you have to have very good beliefs, you have to be super energetic and passionate about everything you do, and it's a real leadership skill. And you can only be a leader if people will follow. So make sure that you understand exactly what you're trying to achieve if you're going to put this in place, because there's no good going down this route if the players are not going to follow. You can do it if you want to make changes. If you're looking to make a change for a player, maybe a grip change or a tactical change, something that maybe they've been embedded for a while. And this happens when the kids transition through the different ball colors. They may have been successful with something in the orange ball, but it doesn't work with the green. They need to develop that, but it's difficult because they've had success with it and those balances. So using this now to get your goals and your targets in place, and again getting the players to come along with you for the ride. It isn't easy though to always use this. You do need to have that personality, that character, that inner drive to really influence people and for them to really engage with you, for you to be able to take them on that journey. And if you don't have that kind of personality and that kind of style, and again, a very broad base of knowledge, because you are going to be looking at all kinds of things and pulling them together in one direction. And if you don't have those to be able to get that vision and that solid pathway forward, it won't really work for you. So you do have to look at it and say, do I have this? So looking at the different styles of coaching, you're probably going to say, yeah, that's the way I coach, or I like to coach that way, or whatever. My thinking is you have to be able to do them all. You have to be able to adapt and be flexible in the way that you work through the lessons. And it's not just how you might deal with different age groups or different abilities, it's within each individual lesson. So in the first place, you may actually be that autocratic coach. This is the technique, it's not negotiable. You will learn to play using the continental grip for the serve, for example. You might then go into more of a democratic and get the players into discussion groups about the tactics. So what choices do we have? Here's the ball, where can we go with this? What's going to influence those decisions? And at the end, it may be a laissez-faire. It may be just, okay, kids, what games do you want to play to finish? So look at the different styles and don't just say, yeah, I'm that style of coach, because you have to be all of them if you want to be a super efficient, effective coach. So again, we're saying take an hour a day, think about it, improve yourself, really get a good understanding of who you are as a coach and how you coach, and that will help you deliver much better lessons in the future. So as ever, difficult times, we know that. We're working the way through it the best we can. We are staying positive. We are looking forwards. But as ever, at this moment in time, please stay well, stay safe, and take care. Cheers.